Boston College and Notre Dame, a historic rivalry, the newest edition coming to Boston College on Saturday.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a Locked On crossover between Locked On Boston College and Locked On Irish. I am your host, AJ Black, and I'm joined by
Tyler Wojak
of Locked On Irish. We're here today to talk about Locked On BC and Boston College and Notre Dame in their game on Saturday. Thank you all for joining us. Obviously, you know both of our podcasts. If you're listening on Locked On Irish's feed, if you're listening to the Locked On Boston College feed, you know we are the place to go to get your news on your Boston College Eagles and your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We are available for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to give our predictions and final thoughts for Saturday's Holy War. How does either team win this game? We'll talk about the strategy for that, and we'll give the storylines about both of our programs. So to kick things off, Tyler, I want to ask you first, how has the season gone under Marcus Freeman this season? Started off with 2 losses, but seems like things are going in the right direction now.
Started off with 2 pretty heartbreaking losses. I mean, losing to 2 top 10 teams by a combined 4 points is certainly going to sting. You think back to all these different plays. Like, had they gone differently, what sort of position would Notre Dame be in? And after they lost those first 2, some people wrote them off when it came to the playoff race. Personally, I was like, look, I don't think they're completely out of it yet, but I want to table any discussions about the playoff until about right now. So that was back in September. Now here we are at the end of October, and I think Notre Dame is firmly in the mix for the college football playoff. I think they are definitely one of the top 12 teams in the country, but those 2 losses do matter. They still count. So Notre Dame is trying to get back into the good graces of everyone else in college football, including those people who wrote them off. And I think that they're marching towards that. They're coming off a really impressive win over USC at home before the bye week. USC was ranked when they played. They're ranked again now. And they have Boston College obviously coming up this weekend, and then 2 potentially ranked games against Navy and Pittsburgh. So Notre Dame is entering the stretch run with a lot to prove to everyone else that they are worthy of making the college football playoff, and I think this is step 1.
Now, talk about the offense and defensive line. That's always been the bread and butter for good Notre Dame teams. You've got, obviously, I think BC fans are going to notice some local kids on both sides of the ball with Gerby Lambert and Boubacar Traore on the defensive side. I know BC was going after both of those kids hard when they came out of high school. But this is a talented roster on both sides of the line. Talk about the trenches for Notre Dame.
So Notre Dame's offensive line had really high expectations going into the season. A lot of people were calling them one of the best units in the country, and then they were just flat out bad against Miami. Like, they got dominated by Ruben Bain, Akeem Messidor. Their left tackle, Anthony Knapp, had to leave the game due to cramps and was extremely hot and muggy in South Florida during late August. So I think that affected them, but it was pretty disappointing for them to have all that hype going into the season and then get dominated. And then they made improvements going into the second game against Texas A&M, and I think we're starting to see now just how good of a team Texas A&M is. So they struggled to start out the year, but since then they've sort of found their footing despite some injuries. They're going to be playing without their starting center, Ashton Craig, who's out for the season, and Billy Schrout, their starting left guard. He's also out with an injury, but Joe Otting played great when he came in for his first start against USC. I was blown away by how well he played, and then they're filling in Billy Schrout's spot with a man named Sullivan Absher, who is basically the ultimate swing guy. There was a chance he could win the starting right guard job at the beginning of the year, but they had their best game of the season in their most recent game against USC. I don't know how much that says about USC's front 7 or if Notre Dame's offensive line has finally turned the corner, but they did look really good in that game. And then on defense, similar story. They could not get pressure on the quarterback at all to start the year, but lately they've really found a groove, and I thought the defensive tackles in particular played great against USC. They were getting after Jaden Mayava all night, forced them into some interceptions that ended up turning the game. So it was a rough start to the season for Notre Dame in the trenches overall, but really they have improved each and every week, and I think now you could say that both the offensive and defensive lines are a strength of this team.
Now, it takes a lot for a Boston College person to say that they love watching a Notre Dame person, but Jeremiah Love, I could watch him run the football all day long. Like, this kid is special. How is his year gone, and is he going to be a Heisman finalist?
Heisman finalist, I think is possible. He's definitely not going to win the Heisman unless,
Right.
Some chaos happens in college football down the stretch. I think it's going to be either Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza. But his game against USC was just unbelievable. He completely dominated that game. And we've talked about it before on my show how, like, Jeremiah Love has had a lot of great highlights, a lot of great moments. He's had some really memorable plays, but he hasn't completely dominated in a big game quite like that. And he finished with 228 rushing yards. He was averaging 9.5 yards per carry. So the Heisman campaign is officially underway. The Notre Dame social media team, they're really starting to campaign for him, and as they should, because he's definitely one of the best players in the country. I don't know if he's going to have the stats that you kind of need for a running back. I mean, you look at what Ashton Genty did last year. He had just ridiculous numbers, and Jeremiah Love is not, nor should he, get those kind of numbers because he's not going to get that amount of carries. Notre Dame is going to try to keep him fresh as much as possible so that they can have him if they do end up making the college football playoffs. So I think it's possible for him to make it to New York. He has a great opportunity this weekend against Boston College, who really struggles against the run. So it just kind of depends. Like, how often is Notre Dame going to give him the ball? If they get out to a big lead, are they going to keep doing it to pad his stats, or are they going to take him off and let Price or Aeneas Williams or any of the other backs? So I think the fact that they're already making an effort to campaign for him shows you they're going to try to give him the ball, but ultimately I'm really not that concerned about him going to New York. He's definitely not going to win. I'd much rather have him healthy and ready to go for a playoff run.
And Notre Dame, they have the luxury of having Jadarian Price, who would be a starter anywhere else. Like, he would be a starting running back at most major programs. So they have the ability. Like, I was talking to my co-host who comes on, Mitch Wolf, and I was like, oh, so is Love going to run for like 230 yards? He's like, nah, they're going to probably use Price more to keep him fresh. So you probably won't get gaudy numbers, but you never know. So that's something to look for. Now, in a moment, Tyler, we're going to switch the tables, and I'll let you ask me about Boston College. I have a lot to say, and you'll probably want to hear what I have to say about BC's 1-7 season in just a moment. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will win, score, or where the comebacks are going to come from. Plus, you can get live game parlays on points scored, assists, rebounds, anything you want in the NBA. It keeps games exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And if you're not into the NBA, you can go into football, baseball, hockey. They have it all on FanDuel. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of that impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. So go join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. Welcome back. This is a special Locked On crossover episode between Locked On Boston College and the Locked On Irish Show. I'm AJ Black. Thank you all to our everydayers who listen to Locked On BC, listen to Locked On Irish every single day, and made us part of your daily routine. So, Tyler, it's your chance to ask me about the Boston College Eagles. Get ready.
So going into the year, I looked at this as a potential trap game because I watched a pretty good amount of Boston College last year and Bill O'Brien's first season as the head coach. I mean, they had that nice win over Florida State to start the year, and then we realized that Florida State is not really that good. But it was just like a feisty team. They were going to scrap. They were going to claw. Even if they were to lose, they're not going to go away quietly. So when I was looking at the schedule, I thought, on the road against Boston College, Notre Dame doesn't have a great history there. So I thought that this could be a game where Boston College would just be a really tough out. But then it seems like things have kind of gone off the rails, losing the last 7 straight. So this might be a loaded question, but what the hell happened?
So there's a bunch of things that have happened. The biggest piece is injuries. And I hate to lean on injuries, but if you look at what Boston College lost on the defensive side of the ball, it's kind of stunning. And some teams, if you look at the amount of players, it's compared to other schools, it's maybe not as bad. But when you're a school like BC who doesn't have the depth of a Notre Dame or a USC or some of the big Power 4 programs, it does hit BC. They've lost both of their starting cornerbacks. They lost their starting linebacker. They lost 4 of their 5 starting top defensive tackles. They lost an edge rusher. They lost their starting wide receiver. The injuries were just crazy. So especially on the defensive side of the ball, when you watch what happened, where, like last weekend against Louisville, they let up 500 yards and explosives all over the place. Part of it is that Bill O'Brien is now forced to throw out a whole bunch of young freshmen who are not there yet. They're getting better. They had some plays against Louisville to make that game interesting, which is not what I expected. So that's great. They're starting to develop. It's just they got thrown into the fire real fast. So that's a big piece. Additionally, there's been issues on the offensive line. Their defensive line is bad. It's just bad. They just cannot make stops, especially BC cannot get pressure on opposing teams with rushing 4. They have to blitz constantly. And so BC has the second highest blitz rate in the entire country, which when you have a young secondary puts them in a really, really bad position because you want to have them with a little support from your safeties and linebackers and all that good stuff. They can't do that. So it's just that's a toxic mix. And I got to say, there's been some issues too with the coaching. First of all, the reason they don't have the depth was because BC whiffed hard in the transfer portal. They brought in 17 guys, and they've had literally, you might see number 2 on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a second. Their only guy that they brought in has been a consistent contributor, has been their punter they brought in. That's been it. They have an edge rusher who's been okay, Dylan Lonergan, who may play on Saturday, but everyone else has been kind of MIA. So whiffing in the transfer portal was a big issue because Jeff Hafley never really had that issue. He brought in guys, they may not have been perfect, but at least they brought you depth. So that depth issue has been a big issue. And then offensively, I haven't been the biggest fan of what they've been calling on offense. It's been kind of haphazard all over the place. They have not been very consistent on what they're doing. So that's been a big problem as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear you say that we might see Lonergan this weekend. I know he won the starting job at the beginning of the year, and then Grayson James has come in lately. Now, when I watched that Louisville game, it did look like he was banged up. So is this going to be a performance-based decision or an injury decision?
It's based off definitely what Bill O'Brien said on Tuesday. It's an injury decision. He said it was not. He said on Tuesday that it was TBD, but it was not based on performance. So that to me means injury. So Grayson, his big piece is that he can run the football, but it looked like a leg injury to me, like an ankle or something like that. And if he can't run the football, that really puts him honestly below what Lonergan can do. Because Lonergan can at least, run the offense a little bit better. So I think if James is hurt, you're going to see Dylan Lonergan. If James can go, it should be Grayson James playing on Saturday. But I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I don't know which direction they're going to go with, or more honestly, if it really matters.
How much would the offense change in terms of what they're trying to do? Because I know that Bill O'Brien likes to run a lot of play action, take deep shots down the field if he can get them. But like you said, Grayson just brings a different dynamic with his running ability. So are there going to be big schematic shifts, or is it just going to be like plug in one guy as opposed to the other?
No, there's definitely a change in how the offense runs. So Grayson he runs RPOs much more efficiently, and he does QB draws and things like that. You don't get that out of Dylan Lonergan. Like, he can run the ball. And honestly, when he's on his game, that adds a piece to the offense. Like at the beginning of that Louisville game, BC had the ball 14 of the first 15 minutes. They let up an explosive for 1 touchdown, but otherwise they were on the field. And a lot of that was due to Grayson James's ability to, 3rd and 4, nothing's open, run. And he was able to do that. Dylan Lonergan can't do that. The big difference, though, is while James can run, Dylan can do something that Grayson can't do, which is the quick pass game, which I think is important against a defense like Notre Dame. Like, Grayson he holds the ball way too long sometimes, and it's a big issue. Dylan can get the ball out fast. He just he's young and he's learning. So the reason he got benched was because he was getting confused a lot. Teams like Clemson and Pitt really just kind of threw him through a loop because he was leading the country in passing yards through the first 3 games. It's just he just really fell off a cliff after that. But he does bring that ability to throw quick passes, and that could be something that I think James isn't able to do.
Okay, I want to flip it over to the defensive side of the ball because I have just been blown away by the defense and some of the numbers that I was looking at, because this was a good group last year.
Yep.
Once Lewis came in as the defensive coordinator, I know he likes to blitz and he likes to get after the quarterback. Now, you've already kind of alluded to it with the injuries, but is that the only problem? Because, I mean, when you've got the Louisville running back, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I believe it's Lewis.
Isaac Brown.
Isaac Brown, yeah.
Yep.
When he had over 10 yards a carry, and then he has that big run late to seal the game when Boston College had actually made it a game there late in the fourth quarter. It's just amazing to me because I thought this group was good, but like you said, they've just been decimated on that side of the ball.
The big issue so as I said, the defensive tackle has been beaten up. The edge rushers is where I think the big issue is, because you had Donovan Asaraku last year who led the country in sacks. He had 16.5 sacks last year. Watching that defense last year, you kind of knew he was the defense, and he literally made everyone around him better. You didn't go and you knew, like anyone watching the team knew last year, really you didn't have anyone to replace him or anyone that could do half of what he could do. You went into the portal, you went and grabbed a couple FCS guys that really never played, which was kind of odd. I mean, if they were developmental, that's fine, but you were asking them to come in and replace him. And then you had guys on your roster that just couldn't do it. So you just didn't have guys. You don't have the guys to do it. So they're slow. They're not as instinctive as Araku was, and it's causing all sorts of issues. And they can't get pressure on quarterbacks. And, you know, it just takes, and I'm already having nightmares of Jeremiah Love bouncing it to the outside and just going, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen once or twice. He or Price are going to, they're going to get some big runs there.
I heard Bill O'Brien say in his press conference earlier in the week that if they are not able to stop the run, that it's going to be a long night, which to me suggests that Boston College is going to try to load the box and keep that run game in check with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. And also, I think he's looking at what Notre Dame has done recently, and C.J. Carr has had some absolutely amazing moments. I mean, 354 yards against Arkansas, over 340 yards against NC State. He has made some jaw-dropping throws that Notre Dame fans have been waiting to see for a really long time. However, he is coming off his worst game of the season and the worst game of his brief career against USC. Granted, the conditions definitely played a part in that as well. But are you expecting Boston College to try to sell out and stop the run and then force C.J. Carr to beat him?
I would imagine that's probably the route they're going to have to go, because, you're going to have to pick your poison, right? Like last week, they shut down Miller Moss. And I thought they did a pretty good job. I mean, he threw for 184 yards. He didn't do a whole lot compared to some other quarterbacks they've faced that really kind of shredded them. I think game planning, you're going to have to work on, like, especially after giving up 300 plus yards on the ground to Louisville, you're going to have to figure out a way to try to slow down the running game. It's just, when you do that, it opens everything up for Carr. Like, if they do that, BC's not talented enough in the back end to support that. I really think they're going to get gashed on big pass plays if they're not ready for that.
Those are the main questions I had for you. I think it's about time for some predictions.
All right, we'll get to predictions in just a moment. Thank you all. We'll be back in just a minute. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Wrapping things up on our Locked On crossover episode. This is Locked On Boston College and the Locked On Irish podcast. Get us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're wrapping things up with predictions and final thoughts. Tyler, do you want to give your prediction, or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Oh boy. Okay. So I last week picked BC to get their doors blown off against Louisville, and to their credit, they've proved me wrong. I have been picking against BC for the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to continue to do that. The piece to me that I feel that BC is going to struggle with most, it's not a piece, it's a major part of this game, is the trenches. BC's offensive line was really, really struggled against Louisville. Their defensive line was okay. But Notre Dame, I know that they've had their issues, but they're better than what Boston College has. I expect another 300-yard plus running game from Notre Dame. I think you're going to see some style points in this one as Notre Dame, as you said, tries to get themselves ready for the playoffs. And I think BC is going to get their doors blown off at home 49-10.
Okay, so we're pretty close. I'm going to say 52-10. And I think this is just a bad timing game for Boston College because Notre Dame is coming off the bye week. And they have had real issues as of late scoring in the red zone and converting in short yardage situations. I mean, it was very apparent in that game against Boise State, and then those issues sort of persisted against NC State and USC. But I think that was a big emphasis for Notre Dame during their bye week. They did a lot of self-scout, and that was a glaring issue on offense. And they have been able to move the ball at will against literally every team they've played, with the exception being Miami in the season opener. But the offense looks so much different now than it looked back then. They're way more aggressive. They've been running the ball a lot better. And to your point about style points, I think Notre Dame understands what they have to do in these next 5 games. They have their signature win against USC, and now it's about just going out and dominating their opponent each and every single week. They did that last year after the loss to Illinois, or Northern Illinois, I should say. And now that I'm expecting them to have those issues cleaned up. I think they're going to find the end zone early and often. And I think CJ Carr is going to have a big bounce back game. I think we'll see a good bit of Jeremiah Love, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had single-digit carries in this one. He might break open a long run or two, so he might get his yards up. But I think the focus is going to be on CJ Carr, getting him back into a rhythm. And I also expect a defensive touchdown as well, because Notre Dame has been intercepting passes left and right as of late. This looks like a totally new defense. And Boston College has 2 quarterbacks that aren't afraid to throw it to the other team. So I'm expecting a blowout as well. But I also don't expect Boston College to just lay down and die, kind of like Arkansas did when their entire program just quit at halftime. I think Boston College is a tough team. They're not going to go down without a fight, but I just think ultimately the talent mismatch is going to be a bridge too far.
And I also think, for those listening from Locked On Irish, I expect this to be heavily a Notre Dame, almost a home crowd. I think a lot of BC fans have seen the secondary market for the price of these tickets, and they're going, "Oh, I have a 1-7 team that I could go watch, the 30-point underdogs, or I could sell those tickets to a Notre Dame fan for $200 a piece and go out to dinner and have a night out at Mohegan Sun for the weekend. I'm going to sell those to a Notre Dame fan." I just get that sense that Alumni Stadium is going to be very, very heavily fighting Irish on Saturday.
It's possible. I do know a good amount of people going. I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately, which is a bummer because I love Boston. I love that area of Massachusetts. So I would love to make the trip and be there to see it in person. But at least it looks like it's going to be a beautiful weather day in Chestnut Hill on Saturday.
It should be great. Do you have a favorite memory of BC? I mean, I don't know if you're on the younger side, but do you have a favorite memory of BC and Notre Dame that you particularly have?
Well, I will say Boston College has traditionally been a thorn in our side for a long time. I mean, from 99 through 2008, I think Boston College won 7 of 8 games. That was when they chanted, "Who's your daddy?" Back then. The 2015 game in Fenway was cool, just the fact that they played a football game there, but it was a really ugly game. Notre Dame almost lost that.
Yeah.
And they had a really good team with Will Fuller, Jalen Smith, a bunch of good guys. So honestly, I don't really have a lot of great memories in this series because, honestly, most of them have been when Boston College was on the winning side. I mean, these last few games have been blowouts. So I don't really – there's not one that really stands out between these two teams, but there's been plenty of times where I'm like, man, they just can't beat Boston College.
So funny enough, looking at the most recent games, there's been a few smattered in between, but you last played us in 2022. When BC was awful, as bad as they were this year.
Yeah, I guess that snow game would probably be my
44-0. Yep.
Actually, I take that back. I just thought of one. I really enjoyed watching Ian Book outplay Phil Dracovic in that game in 2020.
2020.
They had some beef. They had a rivalry going. Phil had some choice words about Notre Dame after he left, and then Ian Book had some like passive aggressive social media stuff. But I was always an Ian Book defender, always an Ian Book fan. He was actually just on my show this week, and I was so eager for that game because there was a big portion of the Notre Dame fan base that thought they would have been better off with Phil Dracovic, and I'm sure Ian heard all of that. And I don't think there was a soul in the crowd for that one, so you could hear a lot of the talking that was going on the field. And Ian didn't really say anything to Phil during the game. Obviously, they're not on the field at the same time, but Kyle Hamilton was just jawing at Phil Dracovic all game long. So that's probably my favorite memory from that series.
So I have to go with 2000. This is going to show my age. 2002. I was at Boston College. My future wife was there, and we were in a dorm room watching. This was a game in South Bend, and this is the game that Tony Gonzalez for BC scored the game-winning touchdown. I only remember this because I'm in the dorm that she's in. Walsh Hall is a high rise, so it's like 11 stories tall, and it looks over Alumni Stadium. Gonzalez scores at the end of the game. BC wins. And then I watch as the goalposts come flying down the street as the fans go and just dump it into the reservoir off the side. It was a memory I will never forget. That was absolutely hilarious. But you mentioned 2015 too. The funny thing about 2015 for Notre Dame fans was that BC, that was the year that they had Don Brown, who ended up at Michigan for a while, as their defensive coordinator. And BC had probably 6 future NFL players on their team on the defensive side. Defensive stars like Justin Simmons, Matt Milano, Harold Landry. They had a really good defense. It's just as good as their defense was, which you saw in that game, their offense was the complete opposite of that, where they could not do anything. They could not move the ball at all. So you had this legendary defense, third in the country in everything, and they couldn't stop the ball. So that was a game that I think a lot of us watched because it was closer than we expected, because BC went like 3-9 that year, and we still kept it close because that defense was so good.
Yeah, that was Deshaun Kaiser's worst game. I don't think Will Fuller did much in that one either. That was not a fun watch.
Yeah, it was ugly. That whole season was ugly for BC fans. I mean, being a BC fan is never easy. But anyways, Tyler, where can people find you?
Locked On Irish every day. You can find me on YouTube at Locked On Irish, available for free on all the podcast platforms as well. So appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, anytime. And do we play against you guys next year?
Is there? I actually don't know. I'm getting my tea on it right now.
Yeah. Let me pause. So we don't play each other next year, but we'll hopefully we'll both be with Locked On in a couple years. So you can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I will be on again tomorrow with Mitch Wolf on my show to do a preview. What are you doing on your show for the next couple days?
Just more Boston College content, mailbag. We've got post-game stuff, and then Sunday Night Live at 8 p.m. on Sunday night.
Sweet. And I'll be at Alumni Stadium on Saturday doing a post-game show from the press box. So check that out. And this for Tyler, this is AJ. Thank you all for checking us out, and we'll see you all again for another episode of Locked On BC and Locked On Irish.